Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks very much to those of you who've joined us. Be great to get a show of hands in the comments. And before we get into everything else, quick introductions from myself and Sunil, my colleague here. So I'm Daniel Gilby. You should be able to see my name there, and I'm an account manager here at Xcession. And just very quickly on Xcession, for those of you who don't know who we are, Xcession are a specialist ITSM consultancy and implementation partner. We also provide managed services amongst a lot of other things. And what we're going to be doing today, and as part of this review series, is talking about some of the ITSM solutions that we partner with. As you've joined this one, you'll see that we're talking about ServiceNow. It would be great to get some interaction throughout. So if you've got comments on any of the areas we talk about, please chuck a comment below. Sonel, I don't know if you want to just quickly say a few words as well before we get into the meat of it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dan, and hi to everybody out there. Yep, Sunil Dougal. So I'm the CRO of Xcession. I guess my background for the last sort of 12 or so years has been working with service management tool sets, but more importantly, customers of those tool sets, and really trying to help them get the most out of the investment that they've made. So super excited to be doing this series. Pleased to be kicking off today.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Sunil. So just before we throw up the slides, just for those of you, we're going to be highlighting various elements of the tool sets, again, ServiceNow today. And let me, without further ado, bring up the deck. Here we go. So I think we've pretty conclusively covered that we're going to be talking about ServiceNow today, but I'll just skip on a slide. And without going through word by word, we're really just trying to give an overview of ServiceNow, highlight some of the significant advantages of this particular tool set, certainly, and then really give a view as well about who this would be best suited to. I'll pop on to the next slide here. And Sunil, perhaps you'd like to walk us through the review criteria.
Super. Thank you, Dan. So I guess just to add to what Daniel said there, we tend to think about people in the marketplace in a number of different buckets. You might be on an existing tool set and potentially looking to move to another one. You may have already made a decision around a particular tool set that you want to move to, but you need to know really what to expect and how to prepare for success in that program of work. Or maybe you're using an existing tool that you're relatively happy with, but perhaps don't feel that you're fulfilling the maximum capability of that tool set. So, what we really wanted to do today with ServiceNow and through this series was try and take away from the sort of feature function side of things and talk much more about what we think are the important things, or some of the important things to be looking at wherever you are in that particular journey. So what are they? Well, we have boiled this down to these 6 areas. We'll look at what it's like to work with, both as an end user or on the things, what it's like to administer for those service delivery teams out there. We'll look perhaps a little bit more in terms of how it might fulfill, or the toolset might fulfill some more advanced ITIL use cases. CMDB is something that's we do a lot of work, don't we, Dan, around the CMDB at the moment, put it that way.
CMDB seems to be very popular currently. Absolutely. Yeah. Lots of challenges, absolutely. Seemingly.
Yeah. We'll look at the extensibility of the tool set, so taking it outside of the IT realm and into the broader business. We'll talk a bit about the platform, and some of the ecosystem that might sit around that particular vendor. And then, of course, we'll look at some of the TCO elements that you might want to consider there. So, there'll be other things that are important for sure. But, when it comes down to it, who's using the tool and how they're using it, what it's like to run, how you can drive best value across your organization from an ESM perspective, and how much is it going to cost, right? These are the sorts of important things that we think we wanted to cover. So if it's okay, Dan, I'll just jump on to the next one.
Yeah, perfect. And just while you're doing that, if you get a thumbs up or a like or a comment, just to get a feel for who's with us today, and that'd be brilliant. All right, yeah, but thanks, Sunil.
Lovely, thanks. So a very quick overview of ServiceNow. I mean, you've been living in a different world if you haven't already recognized that ServiceNow really is the preeminent market player in the ITSM space at the moment. And, you know, in many ways, they deserve that. They, you know, went to the cloud and really captured the cloud mindshare very early on in this space. They have invested a lot into the continual development of the platform. And, you know, if you're at C-level, it's a very enticing prospect to be able to look at your business from end to end, so from customer through technology and into your employee base, and see a single system of action, system of automation, an opportunity to drive efficiency and digitalization. You know, it's a very enticing prospect there, and I think ServiceNow have done a great job in terms of marketing to that audience as well. But as we'll go through, you know, there are some considerations there, and you know, with the ServiceNow toolset, I think, you know, we'll touch on this a fair bit, that extracting return on investment is possibly one of the biggest challenges. There is quite a lot of investment required to deliver that return. So let's dive in, really. So what's it like to work with? Well, if you look at ServiceNow both from an end user or an agent perspective, it is arguably the most configurable tool set out there. So, you know, whatever your business function is, so whether that's IT, HR, or legal services, for argument's sake, the interface, both from an employee or end user perspective or an agent perspective, is configurable. So, you know, people in HR, for example, are not looking at a screen that's really been designed for folks in IT. And that really is exactly what you're looking for if you're looking for an enterprise play there. So it's a highly configurable interface on both sides. But of course, that does require some skills. The flexibility really almost determines that you need to have people developing those interfaces that know what they're doing. But another thing that I think is really valuable and worth considering here is that, you know, all the channels that you might want to communicate with your audience with, maybe the ones that you have today or the ones you want to go to tomorrow, you know, they're all there and ready to be configured as well. So I think, you know, what we're saying here is highly adaptable, highly configurable, and, you know, well suited to that broad enterprise play. So, you know, I mean, Dan, you know, you speak to ServiceNow customers. I don't think, you know, I don't think you get any complaints, do you, from a sort of interface perspective?
No, from the interface, the configuration aspects, you know, you get a lot of it out of the box. But again, if you needed to make those amends to suit the audience, to suit that end user and bolster that customer experience, internal or external, it's all available, you know, as I'm sure a lot of the people joining us today will already appreciate. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Well, let's check a question out, you know, in terms of that configuration, you know, how's that been found from your experience? You know, let us know, leave a comment. Is it good, bad, indifferent, you know, not explored? Be great to hear from the audience here.
Yeah, indeed. Well, and actually, I think that let's echo that sentiment out to this bit that's coming up as well, because I think, you know, this potentially, if you're thinking about investing in ServiceNow, is something that you really want to spend a bit of time considering. And so, yeah, really interested to hear people's thoughts on this. From an implementation and administration perspective, there is no doubt that most organizations, unless they happen to have a lot of skills in-house in the ServiceNow toolset, will need external support for that implementation. And obviously, there's a cost element associated with that. But really what defines, I think, in many instances, the cost, but also the time frames of an implementation really is the scope. How much are you trying to take on board? And because there is a requirement for external support in most instances, and because the timeframes can be quite substantial, one of the things that I think happens is that a scope might start out here and then end up being much narrower for that initial implementation period. And that then potentially impacts on that ROI equation that we talked about earlier. So, be aware, you're looking at investment from a third party, very likely, and you're looking at a period of time where you're building up to that initial minimum viable product. But when you get there, okay, it's fantastic. You have a hugely comprehensive suite of automations, workflow built into the product. You've got RPA built into it. You've got fantastic integration capability. You've got awesome reporting. You've got add-ons in performance and analytics that gives you advanced data collection and analysis. It's all there for you if you can access it. There is something that I would want to highlight as well, and again, Dan, this perhaps plays to some of the customer conversations we're having, which is that you can't see this as a project, though. Investment into something like ServiceNow is an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
And so beyond that MVP, there is a high level of ongoing administration skills, particularly if you want to continue to unlock the capability within the tool set. And Dan, we've been talking to a customer recently, haven't we, that has been running this tool set for a number of years and has got to a point where they just want to kick it on, right? And they're looking at, how they make that a reality.
Well, yeah, just I mean, that's dead right. And just to add to that, with the continual investment that ServiceNow puts into the solution, with the release schedules that they have and the requirement for clients to be, I think it's N+2 versions to keep up with support and so on. They're continually putting in additional functionality, capability, and so forth. And as part of that investment in ServiceNow, you want to keep up to speed and really wrangle as much capability, functionality out of it as you possibly can to get the biggest return on your investment in the solution, right? I think that's fair to say.
Absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely right. But in terms of where you go from a CMDB perspective and some of the more advanced use cases, I mean, again, it's in line with the general trend here. It's a market leader, if not the market leader out there. You have full ITOM capability. Yes, it's licensed separately, but you have full ITOM capability there. You have ServiceNow Discovery, which is a fantastic tool set. But again, it's not a project. It's an ongoing investment to drive something like that out. And we touched earlier on very briefly around integration. Integration Hub provides a centralized integration capability. And I think, one of the things that is very obvious to us and should really be obvious to people thinking about this technology set is that, it's the market leader. So everyone wants to build an integration into ServiceNow. It's very unlikely that you're going to be finding a piece of software out there that hasn't already considered or already built their integration capability into ServiceNow. And for organizations that have heavy investment into DevOps, then, again, ITSM Pro licensing, links changes into the CI/CD pipeline. So, you've got a whole heap of automations and capability there that really bring DevOps and ITSM together in a positive way. But I guess, to reiterate the point that we have already made, a lot of organizations will get to this point and then find that actually there's a significant movement forward. And I suppose it's another example of where you might want to reach out to an organization like Xcession or another partner out there and say, right, we're ready to kick on. How do we best go about doing this? So if we then look at extensibility outside of IT, again, ServiceNow has the most comprehensive suite of ITSM tools within its portfolio that's out there in the market. So, the way ServiceNow think about this really is a number of pillars, and business imperatives or critical imperatives that sit within those pillars, but really what they're looking at is the customer experience. They're looking at IT from a service management and an operations management perspective. They're looking at the employee experience, employee excellence, and then how do they then offer the ability for organizations to build bespoke applications on the platform. And it comes back to this C-level point we talked about, Dan, earlier on, right? Which is that you've got this end-to-end across your organization system of action. And if you can leverage that, something that's out of the box, fantastic, like HR or legal service management, brilliant. But even if you have a business function that isn't out of the box, it isn't already built as a module, you have the platform there to build those applications. At that C-level, you're seeing data flow across your organization. You're able to drive insights out of that. You're able to look at your customer engagement, your employee engagement, your efficiencies in different departments. As I said, it's a very enticing proposition, isn't it?
100%. And I know here you've got, you mentioned about the skills overhead, and I think that's become apparent looking at the last few points there, that skills are needed. The very good thing is ServiceNow being so prevalent, there's no skills. Well, you wouldn't be lacking to find the skills needed to assist, either having your own teams in-house and skill them up. ServiceNow do a lot of training and, academies and things of that nature. So it's not as though you're going to find yourself with a skills shortage.
Well, I don't know. That's an interesting point. And actually, I think we talk about it a little bit further on. So I think there is a shortage. And in fact, ServiceNow themselves recognize this. And they have a stated intention of bringing.
I thought they projected a shortage rather than there being one, but maybe
I think there is a shortage now, and if you look at the contractor rates, there are some very well paid contractors out there in the marketplace.
Audience, help me out here. Chime in. Is there a shortage or not? Is this perceived? What's been your experience out there in the wider world?
I think there is a skill. I think ServiceNow recognize it. They have a stated ambition of bringing 1 million new people into the ServiceNow ecosystem at technical, level. And Xcession is a great example of, accessing that program. We have hired people, fantastic people, into our organization who have done a boot camp and have come with a sort of base level of certification, but really more importantly, actually passion, drive, enthusiasm to learn. That's what we really value. But if the growth of ServiceNow continues as expected, what are they, $9-10 billion? They want to be, somewhere doubling that. Then that's going to have a big impact on the number of people that are needed. And I guess actually, Dan, one of the things that maybe coming into this space, if you're not already using the software, you need to think about is within IT, which is ITSM or ITOM, which is what ServiceNow have its broadest base. You will find people. Yeah, there are plenty of partners, there are plenty of skills. But if you then start to move outside of that, into HR, for example, or other areas, GRC, IRM, some of these other modules, you will start to feel that shortage more acutely, I think. But
for the specialist areas, you mean, Sunil, right? Because
absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
So would that be then because that those types of implementations or that configuration or that capability hasn't been broadly adopted, or it's just that it's as people reach that point in their maturity journey that they can then start to look at that, and we're just seeing that now kind of come to that tipping point of sorts?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't profess to be an expert outside of the IT space, but I think you're probably right that ServiceNow's powerhouse is in IT. Okay, I think everyone knows that. And as they start to push the boundaries, and as they get high levels of adoption, and then as those organizations go, yes, we do want to implement in this particular area. Where is the market? We're in sales, Dan. It always follows the pipeline, doesn't it? Yeah.
Right.
So as the market grows, the skills will follow, but the market perhaps is not as mature in some of these other module areas as it is in IT. But we'll see that change. But I guess that actually takes us quite nicely onto the sort of the next slide here, which is that ServiceNow have I can't remember the numbers, but a huge customer base now and growing of customers that pay over $1 million a year in subscriptions. They have an incredibly high renewal rate, 99%. They are growing their top line turnover number, doubling it in the next few years. How are they doing that? Well, they'll be doing it outside of their traditional base in IT. So they've got that C-level mind share. They're projecting that they will have that C-level mind share. And as a result, people at that C-level will go, well, I need to invest in the people. So they're buying into the platform. They'll have to buy into the skills as well. How conveniently it brings us on to the total cost of ownership question.
Almost as if we'd planned this, right? Yeah,
almost. Let's see if the next sessions can be as fluent as these. From a TCO perspective, we've touched on it. We've talked about it at length, right? It's from a subscription point of view, from a skills point of view, from a requirement for ongoing maintenance and administration. It's going to be probably the most expensive solution out there. That is not to say that it won't deliver the value, because the opportunity for ROI is 100% there. Okay. What there is in the ServiceNow ecosystem, though, is a huge partner market. Over 2,000 partners across the globe. Partners from the tier one end, IBM, Accenture, KPMG. Partners are obviously hugely prevalent in the kind of system integrator space. So whether it's Tata or Atos or Capgemini, all of these organizations are there. And then all the way through to the boutique partners like Xcession, where we don't have all the certifications available, but we have some really great people who are dedicated and passionate to what they do, and our customers really get a great experience from those interactions and those services. So you have this huge partner market, and you have lots of different types of partners. Reseller, okay. We are only interested in delivering services, because for us the key outcomes for our customers are adoption, return on investment, people that can turn around and say, I had a very successful program over a number of years of working with ServiceNow. But you also get pure resellers, people who are in the marketplace to support the buying process from customers as well. So not just a lot of partners, but a lots of different types of partners as well. And that's, from a customer perspective, that's great, okay? Because you may take a lot of security from buying from Accenture, right? Or you may want something that's much more focused on your individual needs. And I think, Dan, again, one of the things that we see with our customers is, we haven't got hundreds of them, right? But what we have got is really great relationships, and we see lots of engagement, mutual collaboration.
Nothing to add to that, really. It's one of the observations I will make, so I will add something to that, in fact, is that I've had feedback from people whereby, when you work with a large organization, you're not essentially always going to get that personalized experience. And some of the feedback I've had is that actually that is what we're looking for here, is that personalized and, successful outcomes. That's a given. In successful programs of work, that's a given as well. Equally, having that more hand in hand, white glove type service, arguably there's a lot of benefit to be had from that as well. But as you said, Sunil, there's a wealth of partners and providers and suppliers and everything else out there. So it really, whatever's going to fit the need that you have, you're likely going to find it in the ServiceNow space, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And if, for whatever reason you're not happy with partner A, then, partner B is available to you as well, or partner X. Moving on quickly. So who is ServiceNow best suited to? And, so we've talked about a great tool set, right? We've talked about a high level of investment. So that, I think, in many ways, is key to be thinking about. Our view is that really enterprise organizations that have that end-to-end view are the ones that are really going to drive the maximum value out of their ServiceNow investment. And so if you're an IT leader, a C-suite leader who looks at your organization and the capability that sits within it and thinks to yourself, I can do more here. I'm ready to make an investment to drive efficiency, to drive experience levels, to improve business agility, to drive better intelligence out of your organization, then you should be looking very hard at ServiceNow. Not only ServiceNow, look at what else is out there, but ServiceNow needs to definitely be in that short list. And I think you've got to match it, right, with a funding strategy that meets the longer term here as well. So, it's minimum 12 months, but actually in reality, it's a 5-year plus investment. So that's key, I would say, target number one for people who should be looking at ServiceNow. But, there are other types of organizations that maybe aren't at that huge enterprise scale, but do have advanced IT service management, IT operations management use cases that should look at ServiceNow as well. I'm thinking about, mid-sized managed service providers as an example of an organization that might well look at the broad range of ITIL processes that they engage with across the course of their days, weeks, months, years, their customer engagements, and would look at that and think, actually, I need a tool set that will help me get the most out of that. So it's mainly the top end of the marketplace. ServiceNow may not agree with us, by the way, but that's our view. Okay, or organizations with ambition to be mature from a service management, operations management perspective. So that's really our overview, Dan.
Okay, good stuff.
Hear people's thoughts,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to surmise in my mind then, so what we're saying here is highly capable, does everything, has all of the modules you could want and or perhaps need, but it is a living, breathing beast that needs to be looked after over time. And I think just to recap on what you've highlighted here is that to have that 12 to 18 month and beyond time frame front of mind when planning your, the ROI that you're going to drive from the solution, and you will drive that. Again, thanks everybody for joining. Observations, comments, takeaways, please just drop them in the comments. We'd love to sort of hear your thoughts. And equally, I'm just going to flick this up on screen now. But if you would like a copy of the slides, again, leave us a comment. We're happy to share these with the audience if you find these were useful. Equally, if you wanted to have a bit more of a in-depth conversation about ServiceNow, about Xcession, or indeed some of the other solutions, because we're running a series of these. I think we mentioned that. The next one's in a couple of weeks' time. Look out for an invite. Just remind me, Sunil, the next one's with...
The next one is on Thursday, the 28th of September,
right.
Same time. Okay, but it will be covering BMC Helix.
Okay.
So just a very brief teaser, if I may, on Helix. It's a superb solution. Obviously, historically, BMC was the market leader. It has been somewhat superseded by ServiceNow in this space, but it has amount of positive stuff going for it as well. So really looking forward to that one too. Perfect.
All right, well, we're just up to the half an hour. So thanks again to everybody who's tuned in. Brilliant to see you all. And we'll see you again soon here on Xcession TV.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.